Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 207. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 4th of the 4th. The 4th of April in the year of our Lord 2023. Yes, the year is well moving along. I hope all is well. I am streaming live on TikTok, on Instagram, and also on YouTube. Wherever you are looking at this, make sure you hit that like button, double tap that screen if you're over there on TikTok. Get those likes streaming upward, because the faster and further the likes go up, the further the algorithm pushes the live out there, so more people could jump in and we could all have a better discussion through this. You know, the discussion is what makes it good. Do you think Trump is the Antichrist? No, I do not. Sorry, no. I don't think he has the capability of uniting the world in that way. So no, he is not. But yeah, the judiciary in Trinidad and Tobago, like I last night when we were talking about the police, and regularly when I talk about this, I believe when you're talking about crime, criminality in Trinidad and Tobago, the police is where you start the blame. When you point a finger, the first people in line, generally speaking, when you're talking about the level of crime in the country, would be the police. Now, when I say that, some people misunderstand and think I'm saying, hi David Critchlow over there on Instagram, misunderstand and think I'm trying to say that the police are the only ones to blame, or the police are the main ones to blame. I'm saying neither of those things. I'm just saying, by and large, they are first in line, because they are the first in line. They are supposed to be the ones there to stop the criminals. That's their job. However, there are other factors too, because even if the police do catch the criminals, do stop the criminals, the police don't actually have the power, or at least they're not supposed to have the power to punish first people in line. Yes, KP. Good evening, Richard Glubman. The police, when they do catch the people, they're not supposed to have the power to actually do them anything. The police job is pretty much apprehension. They catch you, investigate, get the information, and pass you and the information about your crime on to the judicial system. And the whole idea of the judicial system is that innocent people not end up in prison. That's if we were to explain, we were to get a nice concise summary of the judicial system, it's so that innocent people do not end up in prison. Yes, the legal system and the constitution is about building a moral framework for the country, yada yada yada, but the judicial system, when you catch someone right before you throw them in prison, the reason when the police catch someone, we don't or at least we're not supposed to just throw them in prison and lock them there and throw away the key, is because we have to make sure that they actually are not innocent. That's the idea of the judicial system, as Kilvon pointed out very correctly, in the West, because everywhere does not function the same. So the judicial system in the West, yes, is basically about trying to make sure innocent people don't end up in prison. But it seems like that whole process in Trinidad and Tobago is failing, because not only do we see the possibility of innocent people ending up in prison seem pretty regularly, it seems like the guilty people are not held there very effectively, because the prison seems to be very porous. When the guilty get in there, they somehow seem to slip back out very easily. And I was looking at the summary of a bit of news that came out. That news came out on my birthday. In fact, January the 8th was when some of that started to come to the bubble to the front. And you know, the story about the disappearing file. How many of you remember that? The file that disappeared from the Solicitor General's office. The file dealing with the Vindra Naipal Coolman case, where the alleged kidnappers were eventually not able, the state wasn't able to prove their case against them, so the case was thrown out, and they turned around and sued the state for malicious prosecution, etc., etc., and the state did not mount a defense. So because the state did not mount a defense, the ruling was given in default, as it were, just by automatically leaning in one direction, and the men were granted something like $20 million by order of the master of the court. So now they didn't get the 20 million yet, and we are fighting to see that go on. Yes, we know that. But when people started to ask, okay, so what do you mean the guilty slip out of the prison easily? I'll get into that, Richard Glumman. I'll get into that, because there are some articles that I'm going to read about that. when people started to raise questions about why did this happen, why would the government not defend this case, actually what the Attorney General came out to say was actually the file disappeared in the Solicitor General's office, so they were not able to mount a defense because of that disappearing file. Now, an investigation was launched, and I saw the investigation was completed sometime last week or week before, and the investigation was handed over to the Attorney General. He is supposed to have the answers to these questions now. I don't know when if the country would ever get the general crux of this matter, but the Attorney General has that investigation that very likely a lot of money might have been paid to find out. However, we mightn't get the full answer from the written investigation, but some information is seeping out as they're trying to fight this case back. $20 million scandal mix up in serving documents in MindFULL Kuhlman case. A mix-up in serving documents. This is the explanation given by the Office of the Attorney General for the outcome of a $20 million malicious prosecution lawsuit brought by 9 men formerly accused of the kidnapping and murder of businesswoman Vindra MindFULL Kuhlman. The suggestion that the court filings in the case were served on the wrong department of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs was made by the legal director of the Attorney General's Secretariat, Tinil Ramkissoon, in a recent application filed to set aside the default judgment that was obtained by the men on the corresponding $20 million compensation. So look at the timeline of events here. This is what was claimed. They claimed that after no appearance or defense was entered by the state, well, let's go from the beginning. In the court filings obtained by Guardian Media, Ramkissoon claimed that after the case was filed by the group's legal team led by senior counsel Ananram Logan on May 9th, 2020, good night, Sylvan. It was served on State Counsel 111 Natoya Moore of the Office of the Solicitor General almost a month later. Okay, so that first one was served on a State Counsel. However, she claimed that after no appearance or defense was entered by the state, the group's legal team applied for the default judgment before the Justice Joan Charles on August 5th, 2020. The application was served on Acting Court Clerk Sarah Chinwasa of the Chief State Solicitor's Department on November 12, 2020. On the same date, the court office issued a notice of hearing to the Solicitor General. However, the notice was served on Acting Court Clerk 1 Shanice Paris at the Chief State Solicitor's Department almost a week later. So, here's what they are arguing here. All of these names you're hearing here, here's what the state is arguing. The state is saying that according to the constitution in this country, when you're filing matters against the state, you have to serve those matters to specific people. She pointed to the Section 21 of the State Liability and Proceedings Act, which states that litigation against the state should be served on the AG's office through the Solicitor General or personnel that are designated through a notice in the Gazette. There is no provision in law for service of documents in civil proceedings to be effected on the Chief Solicitor's Department or employees of this department. There was no attorney on record from the Chief State Solicitor's Department who could accept service of documents in this matter. Now, I find something strange about this. I find this argument doesn't really add up to me. Are you telling me that when you go to serve a document, a legal document on the state, if you go to the state office that you're supposed to serve it to, and you ask them, okay, I have this legal document, I have to drop it off here, and they tell you drop it to X, and you drop it to X, they could tell you the wrong person, and then your whole case falls apart? Really? A legal source with extensive experience in filing and litigating lawsuits against the state and who had sight of the application. I read this article earlier today, and this legal source sounds a lot like the former Attorney General. Let's listen to the evidence they gave here. A legal source with extensive experience in filing and litigating lawsuits against the state. That sounds like a certain somebody. and who had sight of the application. If they're talking about that very same application, I think that slims down who this legal source is to a very, 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 very narrow group of people. So that legal source questioned Ramkissoon's suggestions on the service of the case. He pointed out that when they and their staff serve court documents on the ministry, the documents, are usually served on the ministry's legal staff, who are contacted by its security officers. He claimed that senior state attorneys such as Moore, who may not be officially designated, would normally receive the documents and transfer them to the appropriate department or official. We do not get to pick who comes downstairs to receive the documents, the source said. Ever see Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Remember the bureaucratic aliens? Yes. Now, I understand what the legal source is saying here. The legal source, who sounds like one specific person, is saying that when they serve documents on the state, they go to the state office, they speak to the security guard there, the security officer. The security officer rings or messages someone upstairs. Someone comes down the stairs. Whoever comes down the stairs, you give them the document, and that is that. Are you really trying to tell me here that the way the cases function in the state is that the security would call someone, and someone who does not have permission to be served the documents would come down and receive the documents? Are you telling me that staff inside of the Solicitor General's office do not understand the process of serving a document? A legal document? Is that what you're trying to tell me, really? Are we being honest with this? Are we being honest with this? Because the thing is, regularly in this live we talk about accountability. The thing with this is there are names. There are names of who received the file. And I think these people should be questioned as to why did the file pause by you? Okay, you received the file. Why didn't you send it to the proper channels? How are you telling me that the reason the file stopped was because the wrong person got the file? So the file just stopped at that wrong person there, That's how it functions. Does that really make sense? So where's the accountability? Yeah, good question. Mumford works there? There's probably a cost to yes. Those records, I sure, also magically disappeared. No, the records didn't disappear. They have the names of I just called the names of the clerks. They have the names of the clerks that collected the served documents. So you could go and ask these clerks, and I think this is what should be done. The file should be turned up under these clerks. When you receive the document, what did you do with it? Why? Where did it go? Who did you hand it to? And I surmise that if you start threatening some of these clerks with serious jail time over some of this nonsense that they may have nothing to do with, you might actually get to the bottom of this. But, we don't really care to get to the bottom of these issues very regularly in Trinidad and Tobago. So, when you ask Richard Glubman, when I'm talking about the people, the prisoners, the criminals seem to be slipping out of the prisons, this is what I'm speaking about, where we see that the Solicitor General's office apparently doesn't know the proper procedure and process of how to file cases when the case involves certain people, and those people can just slip through. Why aren't the documents forwarded electronically as well? Well, Kevon, if you forward them electronically, then how are you going to disappear them? It's going to be much more difficult to make an email disappear and reappear. It's much easier to do it when you have physical documents. That's why they have to be physical. And it's not just to do with the state losing money like that. Listen to this case coming out from Tobago, Positive Radiation from Tobago. Tobago pair freed of sexual offences charges over delay by DPP's office and police. After almost a decade, a Tobago fisherman and his former girlfriend were freed on Wednesday of 7 sexual offences charges owing to the protracted delay by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the police in prosecuting inquiry. In a ruling, Senior Magistrate Rajendra Rambachan upheld an application by lawyers for the two to have the matter discharged. The couple were charged on November 6, 2014 with acts of grievous sexual assault against a then schoolgirl and trackster in Mason Hall, Tobago between August 31st and October 1st, 2014. That's just the start of the term there. Just the start of the term there. And they abused her. 7 counts in that 1 month. Allegedly. The lawyer gave the court a timeline to support his contention that the prosecution was tardy and at fault. He showed the matter was fixed to trial several times, spanning August 2015 to July 2021, but was repeatedly adjourned, leaving his clients in abeyance being waiting. They're there waiting they're in limbo. Several reasons were given for the repeated adjournments, including the absence of either the police or the victim. It also took 3 years for a state counsel from the DPP's office to be assigned to the case. And even after that, the prosecution sought an adjournment as it was not ready to proceed. There were several other adjournments for the same reason, and new trial dates had to be fixed and again aborted up to 2020, by which time the victim had migrated and there had to be an application to have her statements admitted into evidence in her absence. The case was also reassigned a few times to new prosecutors over the years. Different magistrates have also presided over the matter. So, different prosecutors prosecuted it. Different magistrates heard it. The victim migrated in the meantime while we were waiting on justice. So, Richard Glubman, you were asking what I meant by criminals escaping and slipping out of the prison system. This is what I meant. These 2 people allegedly guilty of, in just about any society, one of the most heinous of crimes. You don't get much worse than that in most societies. And nonetheless, they're now free. And the thing is, at least they were caught. Good night, SNS Emporium, but they have to be found guilty. Yes, Richard Glubman, I understand that, but do you not understand what I just said, Richard Glubman? Were you not listening to what I just read? It's not that they were found innocent. It's that due to the incompetence of our legal system, No. In our judicial system, you are innocent until proven guilty. The law didn't show that they were innocent. The law was unable to find them guilty. So, we'd put it like that. I am not talking about their guilt. I am talking about the inefficiency and inability of our judicial system to treat with matters. Are you saying that the judicial system taking the abuse of a child, is this what you want in the judicial system, Richard Glubman? When you dream of a judicial system that functions, you dream of a judicial system that when your daughter, hopefully not your daughter, let me just say that, or when someone you may know is abused, the alleged abusers never get to face the courts. The evidence against them is never examined. They aren't thrown out as innocent because when the court evaluates the evidence, it's shown that no, they could have never committed this crime. No. They never stand trial for it because the DPP keeps shuffling prosecutors. The prosecutors take 3 years to appear on the case. They keep asking for adjournment. The magistrates keep switching. The case is never heard. Does that sound like justice? And at least they were caught. Listen to this, we're going on. Permanent Secretary. Abusers at children's homes have left or died. All staff members identified in the Judith Jones report on rampant abuse in state-assisted children's homes have either left the job or have died, said Vijay Ganga Prasad, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. He spoke at a virtual briefing held by Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister responsible for gender and children's affairs. Ganga Prasad said, every single case, from what I was told, of matters being mentioned in those reports were committed by people who would have left the organization for one reason or the other, or in some cases, would have died. You're listening to this. I don't think this statement is as positive a statement as the Permanent Secretary thinks that it is. I don't know. I think what he's trying to say is that we don't have much reason to worry about those homes because the abusers are gone. I think that's what he's trying to say. But what is being said to me is that in Trinidad and Tobago, you could abuse orphans for years. It could be found out. Your name could be called. Witnesses could step up and say they are willing to testify. And you are allowed to just live out your life. You leave the job, you die of old age, unbothered. I don't want to hear that all of these people left the job or died. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear that the state prosecuted them because that's the duty of the state. That's the state's job. You see, there is a side of this that is deterrent. That is a deterrent. If everyone named in the Judith Jones report that was seen to have abused children was thrown in prison for the maximum sentence, then now, when you're saying we're trying to rebuild these orphan homes, the new staff that goes in understands that, okay, you might get away for 5 years, but if a report is done and your name is called, you are still going to face the consequences. But what do the new staff know now? Listen, if you abuse these children, no one is going to care, no one is going to do anything, you'll never have consequences to face. This sounds like an invitation for more abusers. When you put out a notice for applications to hire new people to run these homes, you are inviting more abusers because you just announced that none of the previous abusers faced any consequences. So new abusers come in. Kilvan says the most egregious crime is probable to go unpunished here. Witnesses just disappear into thin air. Yeah. And here's the thing. Regularly, and in this live too, regularly, when we talk about crime and how we deal with crime, people regularly bring up hanging. Hang them high. Hang them in Woodford Square. Spread out the body in the promenade. Let everybody see. Hanging. Remove convicted killer from death row, orders judge. A death row inmate has been successful in his plea to the High Court to remove him from the condemned cell so he can be resentenced. In a ruling on an application on Monday, Justice Frank C. Prasad ordered that the sentence of death imposed on Ronald Bisnath on March 27, 2014 be vacated. While C. Prasad refused to do the resentencing himself, he ordered the Registrar of the Supreme Court should arrange for it to be done by a judge sitting in the Criminal Division. C. Prasad is expected to visit the death row. Ronald Bisnath of Crown Trace Enterprise was sentenced to hang in 2014 for the murder of 13-year-old Parmanan Boyo Prasad, whose body was discovered in a partially built Shogunas house in 2006. Prasad, a student of the Shogunas Junior Secondary School, was murdered on October 29, 2006. His body was found in the bathroom of the house at Crown Trace Enterprise. Police said he had been beaten and his throat slit, and he had possibly been sexually assaulted. At the time, they described it as one of the most gruesome murders they had come across. Bisnath was found hiding in some bushes close to where Prasad's body was found. Let me drink something before I go on here. In his application for his removal from death row, Bisnath's attorneys Gerald Ramdeen, Wayne Sturge and Diadai Harry Paul submitted that their client was being incarcerated on death row in excess of the 5-year limit set out in the Jamaican death penalty case of Pratt and Morgan. So this here is the limiting factor on our death row here in Trinidad and Tobago, and us killing people here in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the limiting factor. Because our cases ultimately go to the Privy Council, there's already precedent set on that. I remember that I went that school, Kersey Seaton Clark says. That, I remember it too. I don't remember it as closely, but I remember the incident. What can we do about it? We don't vote for magistrates, judges, clerks, etc. That's very true. And I think that's a bad thing. I think we need a little more democracy in that sense. Let's vote for sheriffs. Let's vote for magistrates. Let's vote for judges, etc., etc. I think that would be way better than the technocratic system we have right now. Unfortunately, as I regularly say, the People's National Movement, the PNM power that's currently in power, they are the most technocratic government we have. They are the government least likely to allow more people to get power like that. They are the ones least likely to do it. So, good luck with that. The thing with the Pratt and Morgan case is anyone on death row for more than 5 years no longer can be hung, because the Privy Council sees that as being cruel. It's like you're torturing the person and then still going to kill them. Having me on death row with the expectation of my death is torture. They see that as torture. They see that as cruel and unusual punishment. So if you have me on death row for 5 years, I would have already gone through 5 years of torture. So for you to torture me for 5 years and then still come around and turn around and kill me, the Privy Council does not allow that. So the man was in prison already for over 5 years, so it's known you cannot hang him. Trinidad and Tobago will not be allowed to hang him. We know that. So his lawyers applied that he be let off of the death row because obviously you cannot hang him, so I leave him on death row. So now he has to be resentenced to another sentence. And these are some of the problems when we talk about hanging people. Hanging will be the solution. Well, it cannot be the solution if our judicial system is unable to actually carry out the sentences in a timely enough manner. Good luck. It would never happen. And here's how this works, even against someone if they were innocent also. Fisherman jailed for ganja haul earns freedom. A judge has ordered that a fisherman from central Trinidad who was caught off the coast of Chaguaramas with 50 kilos of marijuana in 2014 be released from prison. High Court Judge Nalini Singh recently ordered Baiju Harinarayan's release after ruling that he had already served his 6-year sentence for marijuana trafficking whilst on remand awaiting trial. So, the man has been charged. He hasn't been found guilty yet. He's only on remand. He's only on remand. But he has been on remand for so long, he recognizes weight. Judge, if I plead guilty to this crime, what would be my sentence? Well, your sentence would be the length of time you have already been on remand. Well, I plead guilty, obviously. And okay, that solves the problem of getting the case off of the court docket. It clears that case from the court system. But is that justice? If we jail someone for 8 years and then tell them, if you say that you did it, we'll let you out. If you say that you didn't do it, well, you have to stay in jail indefinitely until we find out the answer. Like, you know the level of integrity someone has to have to stay in jail so that they could prove their innocence? Staying in jail so that you could prove you're innocent. Not many people will do that. So what you're doing here is you're pressuring people who may in fact be innocent in the system to be punished by the system nonetheless. Imagine that. Imagine you are charged for something. Somehow your name is mixed up in some kind of mess. You're charged for something. You believe that you could prove this isn't you, that you shouldn't be guilty of this. Okay, But then 8 years goes by. And if you plead guilty, your sentence would have been 7 years. You're already a year extra in jail. Would you stay there just to clear your name? Anyone in the life, would anyone stay in jail just to prove you're innocent? And that's the predicament you're putting people in because of our court system here in Trinidad and Tobago. Our beautiful court system. Sylvan Trinidad says yes. Ah. Okay, I rate you. I rate you, Sylvan. I rate you. I don't know. Can the state be sued if found innocent? I suppose it might be according. I suppose it might be according. It might be according to what the charges were, how the charges were presented, how the charges were structured. If you could prove that it was malicious, that someone in there had malicious intent, then yeah, you may be able to sue. But not in every case. There may be some cases where you will not be able to sue. I'd plead guilty, come out and start a podcast. Yeah. Or I think I would find a way to make it public. I'll find a way to make it public. I would make it public. I'll let the public know that I am pleading guilty under duress or something to that effect. That's what I'm going to do. I think some people aren't utilizing social media to the maximum potential quite yet. Social media is a very powerful tool. Any interaction between you and a police officer, I think you could create your own body camera. Many police officers don't want body cameras. You could start up a live and create your own version of a body camera. That's the power of social media and the internet right now. Only if the process was malicious. Yes, Sylvan. I done there for 8 years. You done there for 8 years. You're going to stay, Richard Gloveman. If you're there for 8 years, you'd stay to find out if you're innocent. And here's the thing. What if you stay to reach to the end of the court case and then they find you guilty? What then? Imagine that. You stay because I know I am innocent. I am going to be the martyr for this judicial system. I am going to stay in jail here. And I don't spend the time here, but then you would have wasted the extra time. Then. And here's the thing. Pleading guilty often gives you less time than being found guilty. Maybe if you pled guilty, you would have been out in the 8 years that you already spent. Maybe if they find you guilty, it's 20. Or probably not 20, 15. 3 square meals and a gated community. All right. I mean, I enjoy my life outside, so I have no interest in going inside of prison. But I could tell you, if I was struggling on the outside, I might have gone in too. The problem with prison isn't the prison itself to me, you know. Good evening, Scafty. The problem with prison to me is the prisoners. If our prison system was run in such a way that I could go into prison and get some real quality reading done, get my 3 square meals, be protected well, have nobody looking to violate me in inappropriate ways, then it might not have been that bad. But it's the other prisoners inside of there. It's the other prisoners you have to worry about. Many of them are seriously heinous characters. You don't really want to cross them, and you don't want them to cross you. All right. So, officers, I said it. It's not all your fault. We've seen the evidence. The officers, when they do hold people, very often we see our judicial system is incapable of doing the next step. Our judicial system takes them from the police and says, I don't know what to do. And the thing is, as I said, I always say this, people people act on incentive structure. People behave based on incentives. People don't behave based on what you tell them to do. You can tell people to do whatever you want to tell them to do. For the most part, people do things based on the incentive structure of things. If in Trinidad and Tobago we see that crime isn't pay, crime does pay. You don't face the consequences of crime as seriously in Trinidad and Tobago. It does make crime a little more alluring to some. It does make it a little more alluring to some. And that's not just on the police service. Someone asked, how do we solve that? To be honest, I don't know how we solve something like the judicial system. I honestly do not know. And the problem I think we fell into with the judicial system is we have a bunch of lawyers deciding the rules that they have to follow to make themselves money. It's a bunch of lawyers at the top, inside, around. The whole thing is a bunch of lawyers there, and it's a law unto itself. So it's very difficult to actually, is getting locked up a disincentive for some. For me, getting locked up is a disincentive. But if, as I was saying, if I'm from a community where things are very difficult, and I know a lot of the guys in prison anyhow, then getting locked up isn't too bad of a prospect for me. I think it can't remedy this situation. We will require a revolution. Revolution is a scary word. Very few of them have ever worked. It's a very scary word to me. I am not sure how a country like Trinidad would handle a revolution, how we would do it. You solve it by participating in the election process. Sylvan, we spoke about this last night. It feels like a broken clock kind of thing there. Participating in the election process. Okay, so next 2020, when is the next election? We're in 2023, 2025. In 2025, when the general election comes around, what do I do? I find that the judicial system is failing. Okay, next election in 2025, what do I do in order to fix the judicial system? Explain that to me, Sylvan. I'd be willing to bring you up. If you want to come up and you could speak so that it wouldn't be that delayed, you could actually come up and say what you want to say. Explain that. How do we fix that? The mic is yours. 2025, election comes around. What do I do to fix the judicial system? How do I fix it? What's the first step? You say participate in the election process, and that would fix the judicial system. Okay. How do I participate in the process to fix the system? What do I do? Who do I vote for? Is there a special line to line up when I go into the voting booth? When I go into the voting booth, is there a special line where I could line up and write down Nathan neglecting me on YouTube? Sorry about that. Sorry about that, sir. Is there a booth I could go in and write down my request? Okay, in this booth, I want to fix the judicial system, and that's what I am voting for. I am voting to fix the judicial system. That's what my vote is cast for. Is that how it happens? I guess you can run for elections. Oh, in Trinidad and Tobago, I can run for elections. Okay, I can run for elections. How do I do that in Trinidad and Tobago? Your representative can change the laws. Yes, my representative can. But how do I get my representative to change the laws, Sylvan? How do I do that? Who do my representatives listen to? Do you know they don't have these statistics in Trinidad because no one does it? But in the United States, where they have a lot of these statistics, they have... they show the passing of bills in their Congress. And none of the bills that are passed in Congress have any effect on them based on public opinion. Public opinion has no effect on swaying bills in their Congress. All the bills are dependent on lobbyists. Do you think that's different in Trinidad and Tobago? by voting someone that listen to you. Okay. Who is that someone, Sylvan? Can you please point me to that someone? Who is that someone that's going to listen to me and fix the judicial system? Who can I vote for as MP of Couva North? Because that's how we vote. That's how we vote in Trinidad and Tobago. When I vote come 2025, who I am voting for is the Member of Parliament for Couva North. Maybe an independent. Okay. So I cast my vote for an independent in Trinidad and Tobago with the hopes that this independent will fix the judicial system. So 2025 comes around, I look for the one independent on the ballot card and I say, you, I'm voting for you. I put my X next to the obscure sign of whatever the independent has. I stain my finger red and I do it for the independent person. And then come election night, we're tabulating and counting all of the votes. And I see 25 votes for the independent guy in Couva North. And I know without me it would have been 24. And I feel proud knowing that voting being the 25th vote for the independent candidate in Couva North, being the 25th vote, is going to fix the judicial system. Yep. Yes. By being that 25th vote, that's all it takes to fix the judicial system, you know. And now let's say a miracle happen. Let's say a miracle happen, and the independent person wins. They're now the Member of Parliament for Couva North, all lonely as the independent there. How do they pass a law? How do they fix the judicial system as one singular lonesome independent MP? And then Sylvan would say, listen, Sylvan, and I suspect you indeed are a police officer. The reason I suspect you are a police officer is because you are incapable of admitting when you're wrong. Something I was noting to my wife. I have never seen a police officer accept wrong. That must be very difficult to marry those people. And that's just that's some advice. If you're a police officer, that's some advice to check yourself. That's not a positive thing. That shows that you aren't learning. If you're never wrong, you aren't learning. Just keep that in mind. As a police officer, if you're never wrong, you are incapable of admitting when you're wrong, then you aren't learning. Sylvan says that independent can decide who forms the government and have bargaining power. How? There's only one way that independent can decide who forms the government. You know how they can decide that? If all of the other seats are balanced equally between PNM and UNC, then the one independent gets to decide who forms the next government. And then, even if they go to the PNM side or the UNC side, they will not be the prime minister. They will be the one independent on the government bench. They will be an outcast. The prime minister is the person, is the MP who commands the most support of the most MPs. How are you going to command the support of the most MPs if you are an independent MP? They're there as a party together for that very same purpose. You're not going to be prime minister. You'll be the lonely, solitary MP, independent as you might be, on the governing bench, begging them to do something differently. And if you look back at the People's Partnership, yes, Sylvan, yes, that is what I am saying, Sylvan. That is what I am saying. If you remember back to the People's Partnership, there were some people who considered themselves independent. And one of two things happened as the partnership went on. The independent people were either assimilated totally into the party and were no longer independent. I got a kind of sneeze there. If you could catch that sneeze, you'd catch it. And then the people who couldn't be assimilated were spit out. They couldn't stay with the partnership, as many of the partners in the partnership left. That's what happens there. Any suggestions, Sylvan asks. Sylvan, I say suggestions every night. Last night, my suggestion was that the police officers that are in service of this broken system use their moral sense when they're dealing with the public, understanding that you're in the service of a broken system. And if you enact all of the rules that the broken system tells you to enact, you're just going to persecute people. That was the solution I gave last night. The solution I give every night, basically, the solution I give every night basically is personal responsibility. You need to personally learn as much as you can, personally acquire the knowledge, and personally make the decisions that best affect you. They get CPEP contracts. That's temporary. Sylvan, here's the thing. Regularly people say that in order to fix the system, you need to cut off the head. The head is the problem. You need to cut off the head. But I don't think our system is a system like that. Our system is not a fish, where if you remove the head, then it fixes the rest, the rest is dead. No, it's a hydra, where when you cut off one head, it just pops back up. Because the head is inconsequential. The organism is an organism that is self-propagating without the head. The head is inconsequential. It's like a chicken. Chickens don't need their heads. There was a chicken, I forgot his name. He had a kind of real regular name like Harry or something like that. There was a chicken who was beheaded and lived on for something like 5 or 6 years. And you know how he died? Not because he lost his head. He didn't die because he lost his head. He died because he choked. Someone trying to get a corn grain down his throat ended up choking poor headless chicken. But the chicken lived without a head for a long time. Trinidad. I don't know how many of you remember the 1818 deadlock. When was that? 2001? 2001, somewhere there. The 1818 deadlock where both parties got 18 seats each. And eventually A&R Robinson selected, and that was quite some history. But for a while when there was the 1818 deadlock, the country was running basically without a government. Without the head. There was no head, and the headless chicken was still going around. The headless chicken was still... Curvon, listen. A&R Robinson, probably, and I try not to make celebrities of politicians for obvious reasons, but A&R Robinson probably would have been my favorite politician out of the whole Trinidad laundry list of politicians. The man had spine. If it's one thing, he had belly. He had belly. He could have done what he thought he had to do, which I rate. I rate that highly. But yes, during that 1818 deadlock, there was no government. There was no head. So, very regularly, I think that the problem is the head. We need to work at the head. We need to chop off the head. I think very often that's an excuse. It's an excuse so that everyone at the different areas, at the different levels in society could do what they want and say it's not my fault. The society is collapsing, not because I pay bribes, not because I am dishonest on my own. No, the society is collapsing because Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley is a bad bobby-headed man. That's why the society is collapsing, not because I'm a crook myself. And I think that's an excuse. The reality is, most of the largest things we look at in society, we cannot and will not have a direct impact on it. My member of parliament is Ravi Ratiram. Most of the system would only change when change is more profitable for those that run the system. No, I don't even think so. I think the idea that this is what I'm saying, if you're listening to what I'm saying here, the idea that we're looking for, that what we need to do is change the head. What we need to do is change the head. Cut off the PNM head, cut off the UNC. I am speaking proverbially, no violence here, no violence, let it be known. Cut off the PNM head or the UNC head and replace it with a correct head. And the correct head is going to lead us correctly. No, I don't think that is correct. I think the system would change when the individual actors in the system, meaning us, start to change. When more people in Trinidad are less dependent on the government. When more people in Trinidad have more interest in seeing about their own well-being without letting the government have it, without waiting on the government to see about it on their behalf. A lot of the reason our government has so much power is because we want them to. We are always begging the government to do one thing or the other, and that's why they have power. Something that keeps sticking in my head with this is something officer said in one of the lives. And something that an officer said in one of the lives, where he was pointing out that some of the road traffic violations, and I said this before, some of the road traffic violations that we complain about were caused because Arrive Alive and other pressure groups asked for them. And I have a problem with that. You see, if you have your maternal need, your maternal instinct is kicking in too much, and you want to mother someone, you want to protect someone, go make a family and protect your children. The job of the government is not that each and every person protect from harm kind of thing. No, that's not your job. You want to mother people, go make a family. And this could sound offensive, and I've said it before, but I stand by this. That's the reason very often leadership is more seen as a masculine style thing. Political leadership. That's why. Because when you get into the maternalistic political system where they mother hen everyone, they want to make sure that you are buckled up at every turn. They want to make sure that you are vaccinated for everything, and you have no say in it. Open your mouth and eat your peas. Mommy say eat your peas. Eat it. I don't want a government to do that. And many people think that the government protecting them, the government protecting everyone is going to make things better, but it does not actually. The government isn't capable of doing that. That's not how governments were engineered. Free healthcare is that end? Yes, Keefy, it is. You're going down a road there. So Maya has that dog in her. Hey! Hi! Do you agree that voters have the ultimate power? I don't actually, Sylvan. I don't agree voters have the ultimate power. I'd say people have the ultimate power. But not voters. Voters are an abstract thing. How do you get votes? Political parties don't look at voters as individual human beings. That's one way to understand that voters don't have power. When the political parties and their consultants, if I had to choose, I'd choose Farley Positive, if I had to choose. when the consultants are looking at voters, they don't look at voters as individual human beings. They're groups. So how I get voters is money. I need a party financier to give me enough money to run the right narrative, run the right messaging in order for me to win across this voting block. That's how people view voters. They don't view voters by the individuals, and each individual has the ability to make no, that's not how it happens. Voters are the citizens that participate in the election process. I know what the voters are, but the voter, Nathan, you are wrong. Okay, I could take you saying that, but that's not how electoral politics is won. You could I don't know what's wrong in that. You could literally, they look at population density. But Positive, you're agreeing with what I said. I am saying that they don't look at voters as individual human beings. They don't tailor politicians don't tailor their message to individual. No. Don't do me that, Nisi. Don't do me that. That's not what I said. They don't tailor their message towards individuals. The individual voter is not the person who has power. The individual voter is a pawn. How to explain this? In order, the voters of Europe, if me, Kamala called me for 20. Yeah, Jaren. If me and Positive Radiation are going up for elections in Curep, who, and this is the strategy we have, the strategy both of us have, is that one of us is going to walk the road. One of us is going to walk the road and talk to each individual in Curep, attempt to do that. Talk to each individual and see if we could convince them to vote for us. And the other one is going to study population dynamics, study the age, sex, race, religion, income group, etc. ideologies of the most people in Curep. And I'll get a couple of millionaires to donate some money for me and inundate the region with messaging that appeals to the majority of the demographics of the Curep region. Who do you think would win the election? I won't leave you all to answer. I'll tell you who'd win that election. The person with the millions of dollars appealing to demographics. It's generally how elections go. It's generally how elections go. And that's why I'm saying the voters don't have the power. Ironically, in a democratic system with free voters, the people with the power are the financiers who could pay to swing voters in your direction. That's the whole reason why people always talk about party financing and election financing legislation, and we need to get the money out of politics, etc., etc., etc. That's why they talk about that, because money swings voters. The choice is up to the, oh geez, Sylvan, you really are a police, Sylvan. You really are a police. You really are an officer, because it seems impossible for you to understand this here. Impossible. And anyway, Jaron VC says, so they're responsible for that king size bed I get last election. Maybe they are. Positive Radiation says, we don't like it when we have to pay back via corruption. But that's the reality. That's the reality. Politicians need money to be elected. That's the reality. I am saying so, Sylvan, because you're obstinate in your point, even when your point has been proven wrong repeatedly. You just go back to the beginning and say it again. It reminds me of so many interactions I've had with police officers. As I've said, I have never met a police who accepted wrong. I've never met one. You could meet a police officer, he tells you that he thinks the sky is pink, and you get a group around you to say, actually, the sky is blue. The sky is blue. And no, the sky would be pink because he named officer. Nick Sober says, right now, Trump taking donations for his trial so he don't touch his. Yeah, well, not the only taking, he is raking in money. Rachel Glumman was here tonight, Jaron. He was or is here tonight. Trump is making a lot of money. That's why I think the National Democratic Party over in the United States, as in the Democratic Party for the entire country. Baby Wati Rupnarayan, yes I am. They weren't interested in prosecuting Trump. You're helping him. You're helping him there. You're raising money for him. His supporters are getting more vibrant. They're getting more interested in this. No, it's not. Behave yourself, Jared. KP said doing that maths for political parties is very lucrative. Cambridge Analytics of whoever get, or if whoever get the work. Yeah. It is very. He's my brother, Baby Watty. He's my brother. But yeah, it's 11, folks. Tomorrow night, I should be more vocal. Of course, Positive. Tomorrow night is Tobago night. So, of course, you'd be here tomorrow night. I know you don't miss a Tobago night at all. Tobago is in a fabulous position. Oh, I like it. So that means more contracts over in Tobago. Just so you know, Positive Radiation, I'm taking contracts for any area in building, general contracting, you know. In case you have anyone's ear, I also take contracts for teaching. I take contracts for teaching too, you know. I'll come and I'll do courses in if you have a community center. We have something launching in the works. In the next week you will see it. Doing some major major moves in the education, in the mindful education realm? Are you registered with the procurement unit? Positive just run contracts now, boy. All this procurement unit business, just run contracts. Good night. In reality, you're right, but it's not right. You do architecture, as in architectural designs, not officially. I mean, I could draw, and I'll draw something, and well, we do design homes, but we don't design homes generally architecturally design. We subcontract that one. We don't work like that anymore. Positive radiation, so you see. So you see. When next time Tobago, I'll hail you out. Positive. I'll hail you out. Okay. If you say so. If you say so. If you say so, you say so. You build homes? Yes, I do. TikTok user? Yes, I do. General contracting. So if you are interested in that, we build homes and we do education over here, you know, on any side of it, building homes and education and repairs and maintenance and all of that. General contracting, anything to do with general contracting. HVAC is our specialty. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning, nothing too small, nothing too big for the most part. Some things may be too small, but nothing too big. Any project, no matter the size, HVAC, we cover that too. Of course, Jaron VC, of course, roofing, general contracting, foundation to finish, as they say. Of course, roofing. RL, I am serious though. If you message me, we could get into contact and see what we can do. I am very serious though. I know some of you may think I am joking, but I am serious. This is what we do. You in a company? Well, partially, it's my dad's company. So, yeah. But Jaron, J. Chris, you haven't heard this. We've said this for the millionth time. That's what we spoke about a lot in the earlies. Need workers in Trinidad though, not Tobago. I am not in Tobago, sir. I am in Trinidad. I am in Trinidad, TikTok user. I am in Trinidad, but I was in Tobago not too long ago doing some work. No positive radiation. I am not. I want a house in 45 days. John, you could get that. You could get that, John. 45 days. Once you have the money, you could get that. If money is not a problem, you could get that. 45 days is actually pretty easy if it's a flat. If you're talking a split level, well, might have to be a steel. You all hire venues, they make the cement dry faster. Sir, we've hired some foreigners before, all legal with papers, but I don't generally like to do that. If it's a flat in 45 days, easy. A flat could fly up very quickly if you have enough money. Looking more like August for start date. That's not a problem, but bear in mind August is rainy season, but that's not a problem. Can we vote for you as minister? Ha! No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Positive radiation, unfortunately, it does not. And I might prefer education, you know. I teach more than I build, but building is something we do also. What 750k could get? Yeah, you could easily get a flat house with that. Pretty easily get a flat house with 750. Yes, you'll get a 3-bedroom flat house with 750k. If you already have the land that is Jaron, if you're talking about buying, if you're talking about buying land and house, 750. 200k could get you. You're talking about a 20 by 20. 200k might get you a 20 by 20 with a shed roof. Because the roof is going to take you a lot. The roof is going to take you a lot. So it may get you the walls up, but the roof may be dicey. The roof may be dicey. No, you'd get foundation and walls with 200k. You get foundation and walls with 200k. You may even be able to plaster the walls with 200k. You might get the windows installed, but the biggest dicey thing is the roof. He could get a house and land for 750k, but he wouldn't like the location. Where house and land selling for 750, Captain Zeke? Where have that? Where have that? I just buy a house and land flats for 1.8. Land expensive. Nick Subas, good for you. I am glad I have a place to live right now, and I'm not looking for anywhere to buy particularly. But bro, when I look at those prices, I'm like, when is a youth going to finish pay that off? You look at some things, 2.9 million for a basic house in a basic community. Like, bro, people got to live. People got to live, yo. We need more rent to own properties for serious people. Housing is a serious problem. Why the housing market so damn expensive here? Ways, boy. You okay dealing with bankers or inspectors when building? Yeah, I am. We built. The only place I saw inspectors very seriously in residential building was in Arima. Arima, those inspectors don't play. THA built a house in 2 weeks. How good is the house? How good is the house is the question you might have to ask there. Why the housing market so expensive in Trinidad and Tobago? I'll say the housing market is so expensive in Trinidad and Tobago because it's a captured market. It's a market where, one, it's very limited, one, and two, you don't have to sell. There's no push factor to selling. Now, I could the land tax that some people were talking about, the land and building tax, I could understand some people pushing for land and building tax because there may be a potential that the land and building tax could help people who have extra land, people who are holding on to lots of extra land, help to pressure them into selling it for cheaper prices, pushing the land prices down, theoretically. Now, that doesn't mean it's obviously going to work that way, but theoretically, I could understand that as a possible reasoning for land and building tax, because that's a problem we have in Trinidad and Tobago here. If I just have land and I keep collecting more and collecting more and collecting more, and I have nothing, I have no impetus, no pressure on me to get rid of it. As the older generation see, land don't spoil. If you want it, you're going to have to pay me for it. Earlier you get a message, she gonna look to press. Yes, so it's 11:11 and it's about that time. If there are no comments or questions, as J. Chris rightfully pointed out, now is the time we're looking to dive out. So are there any questions or comments before I dive out? Are building codes enforced? Should they be enforced? No, they are not enforced. And here's what I'll say to that positive. I'll say the building codes should be dialed back to a realistic level that is actually enforceable and then enforced. Of all the issues government's always trying to fix, the housing market really is ridiculous. Not enough land is in productive use because it doesn't need to be. There are people in Trinidad and Tobago holding on to hundreds of hectares of land. The majority of the northern range is private land. You would be surprised to know how much land you might think is government land is actually some private person holding on that land because they have no need to sell it. They're holding it on for whenever they might need it in the future. Also, Trinis don't prefer dense settlement. I don't like dense settlement either. I think dense settlement is a bad idea. I think dense settlement creates social ills. Just look at the areas where there is dense settlement. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, this has been the Mindful Live 207. I was your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained. It's true most trainees have no urge to become extremely wealthy. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. And I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow night around that 9:30 p.m. time. New party talk tomorrow, correct, Captain Zeke? Because tomorrow is Tobago night. And Tobago has a brand new, spanking, new, sparkling, brand new party. We're going to talk about that tomorrow night. Hopefully some people join the party and might join the live and discuss. That would be good. See you guys then. Hope you guys were educated, informed, or entertained. And as usual, peace out. Hold it down. Stay safe. Laters. Whoop whoop. Tune my